Hi, I'm Andy Ward. I chose the third prompt, so I wanted to speak a little bit about that. So, Hillary Clinton spoke at the 1995 UN World Conference and said in front of thousands of people, women's rights are human rights. This may seem so fundamental and rudimentary, but that can only be said thanks to the strides that she's made and that we've made as a society throughout the last 20 years. Hillary Clinton said in the speech that the history of women has been a history of silence. And to this, I add a quote by Virginia Woolf. She said, "For most of history, Anonymous has been made a woman." What I mean by this is that women historically have been quieted, they've been made to feel inferior. We see this with wage gaps, we see this with political discrimination, we see this with the way that we look at women in politics, in the household, in businesses, in any walks of life. So I wanted to detail within this setting the need for women in politics internationally. To begin, women don't only need equal rights, they deserve equal rights. Women are the bearers of the future. They're the teachers, the nurturers, and they have a completely different aptitude for compassion than men. Women have different needs that only women, I believe, can bring to the political arena. According to our Paxton, Kunovich, and Hughes article, only 10% of women are in every national legislature. Yes, this does speak to a certain momentum that we've made uh, since 1995. However, this number is quite low and doesn't speak to a success story that would be hoped for. According to Paxton, Kunovich, and Hughes, women vote for policies they feel will be advantageous to women. Women are also more apt than men to vote for things like health care, women's rights, children, and social services. Women are also more capable of reaching over the political aisle and agreeing with their opponents. This leads to a healthier democracy. What also leads to a healthier democracy is having people like women from different walks of life being involved in policymaking. I know old women or old men who look like they could be on a retirement home brochure seem like a great option to make all decisions for America. However, it's just not helpful to promote an actual democracy where everyone's opinions should be appreciated. I understand promoting women's representation in politics may seem like the logical and ethical thing to do, but there's also a beneficial reason as to why we should do it. According to World Bank, women spend more for children in households than men. What this means is that women are the gatekeepers to the success of our future. World Bank has set some guidelines, and I feel like they would, help benefit us, such as education to women, increasing literacy rates, and access to things like land, and credit. The bind that women face is that the fact that they can't overcome these obstacles that would lead them into political power, thanks to the gendered psyche and masculinized ethos that perpetuate the arena of politics. The most pivotal issue that I decided to talk about in my essay, and I want to talk about now, is the importance of education. Education, I believe, is the pathway for championing women's rights. The UN's Education for All Committee detailed a couple reasons as to why education is so important. The Education for All the campaign states, it beats poverty. When a child receives basic education, that child receives 10% higher earnings. In the grand scheme of things, if everyone's being educated, then this means that everyone's earnings are higher, which means that this is much more beneficial for a country as a whole. The UN's Education for All also spoke about the fact that when women are educated, they have less children, which is great. The UN looked at the case study of Mali and found out that women who aren't educated had 7 children, whereas women who were educated had on average of 3 kids. Education is cyclical. When one parent can educate herself, she's less able to educate her children, who are then unable to educate their children. So it's just a cycle of misinformation and uneducation or failing at educating the future. So the obvious question then is, well, is funding even possible for education? And the answer is yes. The UN and Education for All Committee found out that to help meet quotas on education, it would take about $2 billion per year to fund poorer countries, which may seem like a lot. However, it pales in comparison to the $650 billion that the U.S. spent on military resources in 2013. So it's hard to rationalize a country that doesn't spend on a military operation or spend on its military. However, it's even harder to rationalize basically not funding our future, not funding education internationally. So Hillary Clinton's speech 20 years ago was a call to action. Since then, we have definitely seen positive progress for women's rights. Since 1995, education has increased. More quotas on women in legislature have increased, and the parity of education has decreased since 1995, which are all great things. These are all leaps and bounds, but nowhere in actuality where we should be. The world is nowhere where it should be when it comes to women's rights. The gender gap still exists. Women still are underpaid and overworked. This is a possible future to have people underpaid and overworked. However, a future that women don't deserve and should not be subjected to. The progress for women is imperative and fundamental not only for the future women, but for the future of humankind. So thanks.